Today, the approach to the Front Range of the Rockies is a daunting sight. To the early wagon trains making their way across the Great Plains, what appeared first as a cloud bank in the western horizon was not a cloud bank at all, but this vast mountain range. The steady upward climb tested the soul. Many did not go further. Others eventually were able to make their way through the mountains and across the Continental Divide. One major route threaded through the American Southwest and passed by a desert plateau so deeply cut with canyons, so jumbled with buttes and pinnacles of eroded rock, that it defied careful exploration until this century. Country is another world. Gone are trees and grass, for here water is scarce. Yet millions of years ago, broad inland seas formed this land, first lying on it until the earth heaved upward, then gnawing through the rock to form deep canyons, buttes and tall monoliths, bridges and arches, all bones of the earth's skeleton. As mysterious as the landscape are the people here. Tall, handsome Navajos, Hopis and Zunis, And above all, the ghosts of the Anasazi, the ancient ones, who built their villages in cliffside caverns, farmed the green bottomlands 1,000 years ago, then were driven away by drought. Still, this country always has been, always will be a sacred place. California has meant so much to so many Americans. First, it was the legend of El Dorado, the promise of gold at the end of the long trail that drew people here. But it was California's natural wonders that filled with awe the earliest arrivals. Scenery in a rugged scale and abundance beyond imagination. California's man-made wonders have transformed some of the land into a far richer commodity than the gold people once sought. Irrigation turns dry valleys into lush vineyards. Bushels become bottles of the world's best wine. sunrise on the Golden Gate, a cherished American emblem, a vision for world travelers, a sight which once seen is never forgotten. Fog often wraps it, concealing like a stage curtain the city that lies behind it. It seems somehow wrong that the Golden Gate Bridge and the Oakland Bay Bridge should be relegated to the humdrum task of funneling commuters to work and back. But this is no routine commute. This is a daily journey into San Francisco, the city by the bay, where even casual visitors leave at least part of their hearts. Day ends in San Francisco much as it began. Fog streams over hilltops and reclaims the land. To the east of the Golden Gate, the city retires. To the west, another of California's treasures awaits the new day, the Central Coast. California's Central Coast, Mediterranean shores, a narrow ribbon called Highway 1, the perfect setting for a Hollywood movie like The Graduate, or a classic novel like John Steinbeck's Cannery Row, a place to come to just to get lost. Morning in Los Angeles. Like a spotlight, the sun blazes across the skyline. In America, if there is one place to be found, to be discovered, it's right here. La La Land, L.A. Los Angeles, a mecca for fantasy and invention. All is spectacular, and many spectacles have little substance, but never mind. As Noel Coward once said, there is something so delightfully real about what is phony in L.A., and something so phony about what is real. Ocean in view. Oh, the joy, scribbled explorer William Clark on his first sighting of the Pacific. From St. Louis, it took him a year and a half to cross the Great Divide and find his way here to this fabled coast. California is only a few hours from the east these days. America somehow seems to be growing smaller, but here the excitement of the West still stirs a bit of Clark's joy. There still is a sense of discovery, that you finally have arrived.
Over America travels next to Washington, Alaska, and Hawaii. But first, take time to show your support of this station by calling in your pledge right now.
And we'll get... Daybreak on Puget Sound, the most northwestern body of water in America's lower 48 states. Here, the serenity of the landscape is almost tangible. Washington is the evergreen state. People were first drawn here in the 1800s for its bounty of forests and harvestable timber. Their ancestors still labor today. Eastern Washington seems ever brown in appearance, but equally valuable. It's an inland empire of sprawling wheatlands built upon rich desert soils. And all of Washington is fishing country, dominated by the sacred salmon, prized trophy fish, endangered commercial commodity, a symbol of renewal for those who make the Northwest their home in cities like Seattle, Tacoma, and Spokane. At Washington's westernmost point, Cape Flattery pushes out into the Pacific Ocean and is joined by a procession of sea stacks, coastal rocks that have been pounded and carved into every conceivable shape by the unrelenting surf. One by one, they stand sentinel, remnants of the continent they once were a part of. Nearly 300 days a year, the western half of Washington is shrouded under partial clouds, misty rains or fogs. The air constantly is cleansed. Rivers are rejuvenated. Here, the weather defines the landscape. It also embellishes the jewels of Washington State, its snow-capped mountain peaks, which, on a clear day, are the one reward for enduring the endless gray skies. Would commuters use a float plane instead of an automobile? Or they fly to work over pristine scenery instead of uncrowded roadways flanked by endless suburbs? Where? Alaska. Just another of our United States, the 49th to be exact. Coastal fishing villages, farmland basking in the midnight sun, offshore oil rigs, freighters and tankers, all give evidence of Alaska's natural wealth. Hard to believe that in 1867, the United States bought it from Russia for under 2 cents an acre. crumble into gigantic shards of clean blue ice. A scene that can be witnessed every day in Alaska. It's the end of a long downhill progression that begins hundreds of miles away in Alaska's mountainous interior, the most remote, most untraveled terrain in all America. Denali, the Indians call it, the Great One. At 20,320 feet, McKinley is North America's highest peak. In 1913, the first person to conquer it, Hudson Stuck, described his view from the summit like looking out of the very windows of heaven. Alaska is bigger than the nations of France, Germany, Austria, and Italy combined, with a population about half that of Rhode Island. America's wide open spaces used to be its prairie states like North Dakota and Nebraska. Here, they could be swallowed whole. Hawaii, formed by volcanoes in the depths of the Pacific. America's newest state is still being born today. On the Big Island, Kilauea erupts, billowing ash and steam. Superheated lava slithers downhill and adds a few cubic feet to the bulk of our 50th state. In Hawaii, water is everything. A deity that drenches ferns, palms, the fragrant blossoms that form leis. Water irrigates the acres of pineapple, cane, and coffee. It laps on small, secret beaches. Water carves the very shape of the islands, forms endless blue horizons in every direction. In Iowa, the very heart of America, like a Norman Rockwell painting. The school bus is just as yellow in Kauai as in Calais, Maine, 5,000 miles apart, from one end of the United States to the other. How does each day begin in America? It may stir us to get the kids to school, stack wood against the farmhouse for the coming winter, commute to the city for another day of work. The rituals are as varied as the land itself. Americans are a diverse and caring people, and wherever we live, as the new day lights our country, it also illuminates our tasks, our ideals, our hopes, our plans for this incredible land, the place we call home. America.
We've gone from Oahu to Bangor in this incredible program over America. Thank you if you've been watching along with us today, and if you're feeling a little tingly as we are in the studio from this great show, I would urge you to call one of those numbers on the screen with your pledge of support. You'll see a little while a graphic behind me. When we started this program, this is the fourth break and the conclusion, and we're going on after this great contemporary look at America from the air. We're going to go back in time a little bit with a